I started trying to kill the king when I noticed he began to groom Ezedo, the first son, for the throne. I realized that he wanted Ezedo to take over from him, but I wanted Ezedo, not his brother. Killing the king wasn't easy for me. Being a powerful man himself, the king fought so many battles with me spiritually, but he didn't know I was the one launching the attacks on him because I always wore a veil over my face anytime I attacked him. He confided in me on several occasions, not knowing I was the one behind it all. I, in turn, pretended to be helping him make consultation. I continued to try until I finally succeeded the night he passed. I shot him an arrow while he was asleep. I was very happy the next day when I got the news that the king has passed. I threw myself a mini party in my hut. When we were preparing to install a new king, I informed the kingmakers and the chief that the gods chose Ezekiel, the second prince, but they refused to listen to me. I did all within my power to convince them, but they refused, quoting the traditions of the land. 3 months after the king's passing, the chief priest installed Ezekiel as the new king against my warning that the gods chose Ezekiel, the second son, and son of the second queen Nneka. So I became angry and began to send different plagues to our village, Achi. My attention was to provoke the people of Achi village so they would ask the king to step down from the throne. I thought that would make them believe my prophecy about Ezekiel and ask for the dethronement of the king. The king, chief, queen, and all present were shocked as the chief priest's confession. They began to whisper among themselves. Soon the palace became rowdy. The king ordered them to be quiet, and everywhere became calm again. And the chief priest continued. The decline in commercial activities and everything that went wrong within the first few years of Ezedo's reign was all my handiwork. I kept on telling the king after each consultation that the gods were silent. The truth is, I wasn't making any consultation because I was the one behind it all. I was only saying that to buy time so I will deal with Ikemefuna. Yes, Ikemefuna has been my enemy right from the day he was born. I saw the sign the day he made his entrance into this world. I knew the child was going to be a thorn in my flesh, and I didn't want that. I started trying to kill him since he was an infant, but I could not. He had his powerful covering over him that I couldn't penetrate. Ikemefuna started visiting my hut from age 2. He would walk into my compound and warn me to stop the evil I was doing against the people. Turning to Amadi, he said, Amadi, if you noticed, when Ikemefuna was a child, he would suddenly leave the compound and resurface later, and you always wonder where he was coming from. He was always coming to my compound to confront me about my evil acts. The last attack I launched was that of the pregnant woman that died because of the coconut that fell on her and the wild wind that took 2 children away. Ikemefuna came to me that day and warned me again. He threatened to expose me if I attacked the land again. Same day after he left my compound, the king sent for me. When I got to the palace, he asked me to consult the gods again. This time around, he threatened to invite another seer if I failed to find a solution to the problem. When the king threatened to invite another chief priest from another village, I knew I had to do something fast because another seer would definitely reveal my secrets. That was why I told the king that Ikemefuna had to be banished from the village into the evil forest for peace to reign because he was an evil child. I was happy that the king listened to me and banished Ikenna into the evil forest, knowing how dangerous the place is. I waited for a few years to be sure that Ikemefuna had gone for good before I started sending plagues to Achi again. I just wanted to prove that Ezedo wasn't the chosen one. I sent the heavy rainfall that destroyed farmlands, the pests that ate the farmers' crops, the Achi River contamination, and the outbreak of sickness were all my doing. The reason for all of this was so that Ezedo could become the king, nothing more, he concluded. Everywhere became even more rowdy again after the chief priest finished talking. The king signaled them to keep quiet, and they did. Ezemo, I really do not understand, the king began with a sigh. Why are you so interested in getting Ezego to become the king? He asked. Ever since I became king, my brother has supported like a brother should. He has never for once disobeyed my order in the palace, he continued. He has never shown interest in the throne, never fought me for once. All I have received from Ezego is love, support and encouragement. Even when you were busy trying to make my reign difficult, Ezego stood by me and assured me that all will be well. So why do you want him to become the king by all means? Make me understand, the king thundered. Turning to his brother, the king asked, Ezego, is there something you are not telling me? I am as surprised as you, Igwe, Ezego replied his brother. Turning to the chief priest, he said, Old man, what business do I have with you? Why are you bent on making me the king, against the wish of the gods? The chief priest began to laugh. Are you sure you want to know the reason for my actions? He asked. Yes, we want to know, everyone present chorused. I wanted Ezego to become king because he is my biological son, the chief priest let out. Ezego and everyone in the palace were shocked. Ezego walked up to the chief priest, who was still lying on the ground. Holding him by the throat, he began, What is the meaning of what you just said? Who is your son? He asked in rage. The chief priest began to choke as Ezego's grip on his throat got firmer. The king asked the guards to pull Ezego away from the chief priest, which they did. The chief priest began to cough very hard, gasping for air. After some seconds, he was stable again. Ezego, do you want to kill your father? He asked. If you think I am lying, why don't you confirm from your mother? After all, she is here with us, he urged Ezego. Aru! Abomination, the crowd began to shout. Ezego, still held by the guards, managed to face his mother. Mother, what is this old man talking about? What does he mean? Am I truly his son? Ezego asked his mother several questions at the same time. His mother, Queen Nneka, buried her face in her hand. She couldn't answer his questions. Mother, Ezego roared. Start talking, I'm losing it, he added, trying to calm himself. Let me help her. The chief priest cut in as he adjusted his partial paralyzed body. Many years ago, he began. After the late King Ikenga married his wife, Queen Adaobi, they couldn't bear children for 10 years. The whole village became worried. The king needed an heir. The chief and I began to talk to the king. We tried convincing him to take a new wife, but he refused. He said he was very sure that Queen Adaobi would bear him children, so we let go. Meanwhile, Nneka was my girlfriend at that time. I had lost my wife many years earlier, so I began to date Nneka. Our relationship was a secret one and nobody knew about it. After dating her for about 2 years, Nneka began to ask me if I was going to marry her or not. The truth is, I loved Nneka, but I didn't wish to make her my wife. So when we were finally able to convince the king to pick another wife, I presented Nneka to him as the chosen one by the gods. The king didn't argue, he simply obeyed and had a traditional marriage with Nneka according to our customs. It was obvious that the king didn't love Nneka, he only married her to please the people. But something remarkable happened the day Nneka moved into the palace. Queen Adaobi became sick that same day and was vomiting, so the attention of the king was drawn to her. He invited the medicine man who confirmed that Queen Adaobi was pregnant. The king was so happy with the news that he forgot completely about his new wife, Nneka. He didn't visit her in her hut for 2 weeks after their marriage. He focused on Queen Adaobi, whom he truly loved. He showered her with so much love and care to the detriment of his new wife. Nneka became lonely and began to visit me secretly. We always made love whenever she visited, and we stopped being cautious like we used to in the past. After 2 weeks, she discovered she was pregnant and she informed me about it. That was about a month after she became the king's wife. The king still had not visited her present or laid with her. I advised her to look for a way to seduce the king and get him to lay with her so that we will make the king think he got her pregnant. She succeeded in getting the king to live with her, and we were happy. It was easy for the king to believe he was responsible for the pregnancy because we found out about her pregnancy early enough. Queen Adaobi gave birth to a boy, Ezedu, and Nneka also gave birth to Ezego. All other female children she had after Ezego are all for the king, but Ezego is mine. The queen cannot deny any of this. It is a secret that was supposed to remain between me and Queen Nneka though. However, as Ezego began to grow, I couldn't hide my love for him anymore. The 2 children I had with my late wife lived in their mother's village, and I hardly see them. I always wished Ezego was living with me, so I would feel the connection and love of a child again. But I knew how impossible that could be. Then I decided that he must be king and rule over RUTH land. That could make me a happy and complete man. Ezego, I am your father and I loved you dearly. I am sorry for everything, the chief priest concluded. Abomination! Aru! The crowd shouted. Mother, what do you have to say about what this old man had just said? Ezego tearfully asked his mother. My son, I am sorry for everything. Everything he said is true. Please forgive me, Queen Nneka said as she began to sob. Hey, Aru, 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 the people said even louder. Ezego sat on the ground and screamed loud. Gods of our land, this cannot be happening to me. Mother, how could you do this to me? Why should this evil man of all the people be my father? I hate you, mother. I hate you, he said as he got up and ran into his chambers. He locked himself up. Somebody help me. Please go after him. He is my only son. I can't afford to lose him, Queen Nneka pleaded. King Ezego ordered the guards to go after Ezego and ensure he doesn't hurt himself. Turning to Queen Nneka, he said, how could you desecrate the royal family in that manner? Do you know how hurt I am to know that my beloved Ezego, who has been my backbone since I became king, is not my biological brother? He further asked as he became emotional. Turning to the crowd, he asked, what do you think we should do to these 2? Kill them, they shouted. Kill them, kill them. A section of the crowd continued to scream, while some others kept saying it was an abomination. King Ezedo the king just watched them, not knowing what next to do. After some time, he ordered the crowd to be quiet, and the palace was silent again. Ezemo, you had the balls to sleep with your king's wife, a wife you pushed him to marry. He began with a deep breath. You could have just kept her to yourself since you knew you still loved her. You said it yourself that the king never loved her, but did it just to make you and the chiefs happy, he continued. You should have sent her back to her husband when she came to you, instead of sleeping with her, he added. I am sorry, Igwe. I am truly sorry, the chief priest apologized. I didn't know what came over me. Please help me beg Ezego to forgive me. I know I have been a wicked man in the past, but I truly love him like a father should love his son. He further pleaded, Queen Mother, I lack words to describe how disappointed I am at you. You stooped so low to sleeping with the chief priest. Ezedo said to Queen Nneka, who continued to sob gently, I will not judge you for being this woman in the past, but immediately you married, not just anybody but the king, you shouldn't have visited him again. I know I am young, but I know better than to visit another woman behind closed doors, let alone someone I once dated. That is the biggest temptation of the flesh, especially when you know you both still love each other. I am truly disappointed, Ezego continued to express his disappointment in the queen. This is an abomination, and you have to pay for it. You and the chief priest desecrated the land, and you definitely pay for it, he let out after a moment of silence. Ezedo went back to his throne and sat down. He picked up his staff to pass a judgment on the chief priest and Queen Nneka. This is my judgment, he said. I, Igwe Ezedo of RUTH land, hereby don't bother to pass any verdict on me. I will help you, the chief priest cut in. He opened his cloth and brought out a little charm. He whispered some incantation into it and hit his head with it 3 times. Please tell Ezego that I am sorry, and I truly love him. I rather end it myself than allow you of all people to disgrace me, he said, sounding sober. Suddenly he began to jerk. He jerked continuously for some seconds, and then he vomited blood. The people began to scream as the chief priest suddenly stopped jerking. He committed suicide right before everyone. The king closed his eye tight and ordered the guards to take him away, while he decided what to do with his body. The palace guards quickly did as they were told. The palace became calm after some time. The king began to talk. Now that chief priest is gone, Queen Mother, Nneka, you are hereby banished from RUTH land. Go and never return, he decreed. My brother, Ezego, he remains my brother. He can remain in the palace. I will still continue to treat him as a prince, because that is what he is to me. Your 2 daughters are my sisters as well, but you are an abomination to this land. You can't remain here, he added with a sigh. Ezedo's mother, Queen Adaobi, tried to talk to him into forgiving her co-wife, but the king refused. I am sure the verdict would have been worse if my father, the great king Ikenga, was alive to witness this today. She has to go, mother, he reaffirmed. Guards, go into Queen Nneka's chamber and pack her things. She must leave immediately, he ordered. Queen Nneka didn't utter a word. She just continued to cry. Her 2 daughters walked up to her and tried to console her. Queen Adaobi got up and ran into her chambers. She wrapped a huge amount of money in a small sack. She then gave the sack to one of the guards packing Nneka's things. Put this in her belongings. She will need it, she told them. The guards did as they were instructed. The king began to address the people. Today is a great day in the history of RUTH, a new beginning and an end to all our struggles. Thank you. The gods have sent us a savior, Ikemefuna. The king walked up to Ikemefuna and apologized. We as the villagers have wronged you. We accused an innocent child of being the cause of our problems. I am glad you survived the evil forest. On behalf of everybody in RUTH's land, I welcome you home, the king said as the people began to clap their hands while shouting, Ikemefuna has saved our land. The guards returned with Queen Nneka's things. She got up and collected her bag. She began to move towards the exit of the palace. Her daughters began to wail. They screamed at the top of their voices until they could no longer see her again. It's getting late. Ikemefuna, once again, you are welcome home, the king repeated. You can go home and rest. See me here at the palace tomorrow. We have a lot to talk about, he added. I will be here tomorrow as requested, Igwe. RUTH land must be cleansed within the next 3 days. I take my leave now, Ikemefuna replied, bending his head in honor of the king. The king walked up to his father Amadi, who had been watching the drama all along. Let's go, father. I can't wait to see my mother. I have missed her sumptuous meal too, he said with a... The king appointed some guards. Take Ezemo's body to the evil forest at once and bury him there. That is where he belongs. Don't go too deep into the forest, he ordered. Others can go home now. It's been a long day, he said. Ikemefuna and his father walked into their compound, chatting happily, full of smiles. Enemoma heard their voice and stepped out of her hut. Her swollen leg has gone back to their normal size, but she was still limping as she still felt pain. Ikemefuna, sighting his mother, ran to her and locked her in a warm embrace. He held her so tight and Enemoma burst into tears. So I can still set my eyes on you, Ikemefuna'Life. I feared that I had lost you forever. This is a miracle, she said amidst tears. I know the gods wouldn't have been so wicked to give me an evil child after 15 years of waiting and hoping. I thank the gods for keeping me alive to witness this day, she added as she cleared her tears with her arm. Amadi stood watching the mother and son drama. Thank you, my chi, he said silently. Where is Adolisa? Ikemefuna asked after he released his mother from his embrace. Ada, Enemoma called her daughter's name. Adolisa came out and Ikemefuna swept her up in embrace. My beloved sister, you are all grown now. I am so happy I could hold you again, he said, dropping her back on her feet. Enough of all the greetings. Please get my son food to eat, Amadi cut in. Right away, my husband. I made apple and oha soup. I am sure Ikemefuna will enjoy it. Enemuma said as she turned to go arrange the food. Mother, I want roasted yam and palm oil instead. Ikemefuna'Life cut in. Enemuma looked back at him and at her husband. You have come again, she said and smiled. I will personally prepare it for you, she added, and left her husband and son to catch up. Ikemefuna'Life, you still haven't told me how you survived in the evil forest, Amadi said as soon as they were left alone. Father, the gods kept me, Ikemefuna'Life replied his father. I saw different shapes of human-like figures in the evil forest. They tried to attack me, but as soon as they saw the mark on my forehead, they apologized to me and showed me around, he said. I continued on my way deeper into the forest for weeks, feeding on fruits from the tree. I wandered until I got to a place. I was surprised to see the huts in the forest, he continued. When I moved closer to the hut, I noticed that the occupant was an old woman. She was preparing some food. I was afraid and wanted to run. She called my name immediately. Ikemefuna'Life, don't run. I know where you are coming from. Please come in and have some water to refreshing yourself, she told me. That was how I began to live with her. I was with her until she told me it was time to come back and set Archie free. All the while I was with her, she taught me a lot of things. She empowered me and gave me charms. She said the gods have appointed me to take over from the chief priest. He concluded, I always knew you were a special child. May the gods be with you, Amadi prayed. He said, Ikemefuna'Life answered. The next day, Ikemefuna'Life left for the palace. Immediately he had breakfast. The king was already expecting him. Greetings, Igwe, he bowed as he greeted the king. You are welcome, Ikemefuna'Life. I hope you have rested. Thank you for allowing the gods to use you to rescue our land, the king answered. The saying, uneasy lies the head that wears the crown, is very true. I slept very well for the first time in many years. Thanks to the gods and to you, he added, as Ikemefuna'Life sat down. Thanks to the gods, your highness, I am just a messenger, carrying out the order of the gods, Ikemefuna'Life replied. As they were about to begin discussing, Ezego approached them, followed closely by his wife with their little baby strapped on her back. Both Ezego and his wife were dressed like commoners and appeared like travelers with some bags. It was his first time of stepping out since he ran into his chambers the previous day. He looked like he cried throughout the night as his eyes were swollen. Greetings, the great king of Archie, he greeted. I want to sincerely thank you for your love and care over the years. You are truly a good man and the best king for Archie. I wish you well, and I pray that this new era will be a great one under your watch, Ezego said. My family and I have decided to relocate to my in-laws village and start afresh. I can no longer live in this village. I am so ashamed I was born out of adultery. Let me live honorably before the village began to ridicule me, he concluded. Ezego, you remember my brother, regardless of the situation. Please don't go, the king pleaded. I do not see you as a commoner, and nothing will change my love for you. What happened wasn't your fault. Please stay, Ezego, he further urged his brother. Ezego smiled. I know you love me, and I love you too, but I have to go, Ezego insisted. Okay, let me hold little Uadike for the last time, the king said, as he stretched his hand to receive Ezego's child. You shall be great than your father. The gods of our land will guide you and watch over you all the days of your life. King Ezego became emotional as he prayed for the baby. He said his parents chorused. King Ezego returned the baby to his mother and prayed for the family. Ikemefuna'Life simply watched the drama. He didn't utter a word. Ezego and his family made their way to the exit of the palace. King Ezego kept staring at them until they were out of sight. I just lost my brother, he muttered, fighting back. For some seconds, Ezego forgot he had a guest. He was lost in thought. His childhood memories came flushing back. He remembered how he and his brothers ate together, played together, fought and did a lot of things together. Although they were not from the same womb, they shared a lot of things in common and they loved each other dearly. Ezego was his confidant and his best friend. When he was to get married to Ifeoma, Ezego stood by him and gave him his full support. They did almost everything together. One day when they were younger, Ezego became sick. Ezego moved into his brother's hut for as long as the sickness lasted. He was all by his side, ensuring he ate well and took his herbs as prescribed. He practically nursed Ezedo back to health. The bond between the children made their mothers to live in peace and harmony. As Ezedo remembered all the lovely moments he shared with Ezego, tears began to flow down his cheek. I doubt if I can recover from this in a hurry, King Ezedo let out with a deep sigh. This cuts too deep for me, my Ezego. My beloved brother Ezego, I love you and forever will, he added. Igwe, be strong. I wish I knew the right words to put together, just to make you feel better. Ikemefuna spoke up, seeing how low the king was in thought. This is a great lesson for me. Always consider the aftermath of your actions before you act. And parents should always consider their children in their decision making, he continued. You and Ezego are only victims of your parents' mistake. You are the great king of Achi. You shouldn't be seen shedding tears. Ezego will be fine. The gods will protect him. He is a good man, Ikemefuna assured the king. Thank you for your kind words, Ikemefuna, said the king. Now let's talk about why you are here, he added. Last night, I had a dream, and in that dream, my father, late King Ikenga, appeared to me and gave me some advice on how well to rule over the people. He further told me that for my reign to be smooth, I need Ikemefuna, the son of Amadi, by my side. He told me that the gods have chosen you to be the next chief priest of our land. With all that had happened since you returned, I don't need a soothsayer to tell me that you were indeed sent by the gods. Please don't say no to this great call, the king pleaded. Ikemefuna smiled and explained his encounter with the old woman in the forest, and how she told him that he will be the next chief prince of Achi. The king was very happy to hear that. He promised to erect a new structure for Ikemefuna, which will include a shrine and a place of worship. He also promised him a large piece of land. After that, Ikemefuna told him of the urgent need to cleanse the land and prepare it for the new era. The king made arrangements for the requirements for the rituals, and it was carried out the next day. Peace returned to Achi again, and the glory of the village was returned. The villagers were very happy, and the king fulfilled all the promises he made to Ikemefuna. Ezego relocated to his family at Agunta, to his wife's village, which was about 3 villages away from Achi village. He explained to his in-laws all that had happened to him back in Achi. They welcomed him and gave him and his wife a hut to stay and a land to farm on, as requested. Becoming a farmer all of a sudden wasn't easy for him, because he had never farmed before in his life. He struggled to weed, plant and harvest his crops. His father-in-law understood his situation and patiently taught him some skills to be a successful farmer. Gradually, Ezego began to get used to farming. He worked very hard and soon became one of the most successful farmers in the village. His wife sold some of his crop produce in the local market. He was able to build his own huts and move his wife and son out of his in-laws' compound. One day, Ezego was on his farm working. He heard someone scream from another land nearby. He ran there to know why the person was screaming. He saw 2 men bringing down a weak-looking woman with rope around her neck from the tree. Why would you want to take your own life? One of the men asked the woman. Do you want to pollute our land? The other man asked. Let me die. What am I living for? The woman saying with her weak voice. The voice, though weak, sounded familiar. Ezego moved closer to them and looked closely at the woman. Mother, he screamed. The 2 men looked up confused. Do you know her? One of them asked. Yes, she is my mother, Ezego said. He bent down and lifted her head up to look at him. Mother, why do you want to take your life? He asked her. Neka couldn't believe her eye. Is this really you, Ezego? She asked, running her weak hands around his face to confirm he was the one. Mother, it is me, Ezego, your son, he answered. Neka burst into tears. Ezego sat down on the ground and put her head on his leg. He began to cry too. The 2 became confused. They tried to console themselves, but they simply just continued crying. After some time, Neka managed to speak up. My son, I know I don't deserve to be called your mother. I didn't get the opportunity to speak to you before I was sent out of Achi. Please find a place in your heart to forgive me. I am truly sorry for everything. I wished I could undo what I did. It's okay, mother, Ezego cut in. I forgave you already, Nemoma. he said. "You are still my mother and nobody can ever replace you in my heart. I left the palace and I now live here in Agantu at Agunta. Get up and let's go home." He lifted her up with the aid of he took her home. His wife gave Nneka a warm welcome and she began to live with them. Some months later, Ezego's wife became pregnant and gave birth to a baby girl. Ezego continued to prosper as a farmer in Agunta. He began to visit Archie from time to time to see his sisters. With the promise of the king, his sister also visited Agunta and saw their mother, although they never mentioned to the king that their mother was in Agunta. King Ezedo gave out his sisters out in marriages and the ceremony was graced by Ezego and his wife. Archie village continued to prosper under the reign of King Ezedo and Ikemefuna, who became the chief priest. Ezego and Ezedo maintained their brotherly friendship. They all lived happily ever after. The end. Thank you for watching. Bye.